Daily Gay Evening News, and it's 7 p.m. Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. We queue up the USA tonight, reporting that the U.S. plans announced today, the U.S. plans to pay people as part of a $1 trillion stimulus program. We've prepared a summary of the story. Watch this.
Here's what we know tonight. The working blueprint is a stimulus package with a lot of zeros. It includes cash flow to issue thousands of American workers a paycheck in 2 weeks. It would also give you a break on your taxes. File your taxes. If you owe, the bill is deferred, interest-free for 90 days. Now listen, nothing's official yet, but a plan is coming.
I watched the White House CDC emergency briefing from the White House today, and they discussed this $1 trillion stimulus plan. It includes a $50 billion bailout, principally to the airline industry, a $150 billion bailout to other related industries that will principally include travel, hotels, cruise lines, etc. But it will include a significant participation in the stimulus program to protect American citizens that are adversely affected from the isolation procedures that are taking place. Apparently, the news from the briefing today did not do anything to continue to quell the security of the financial markets. The New York Stock Exchange closed this afternoon at being down 1,338. It has dropped below 20,000. It has dropped 7,000 points in the last 6 weeks. And all of the gains since President Trump came to power in 2016 have now been wiped out. Lots of implications from the stimulus plan. Y'all's thoughts about what we're watching and what the government's response is going to be?
Well, I think that we're going to continue to see the market in the Dow decrease, and it's unfortunate because it's at the demise not just of Wall Street but also of Main Street. So the 60% of Americans that make under $40,000 a year that are already struggling to make it, living paycheck to paycheck, having to choose between rent, groceries, utility bills, and healthcare costs. I really hope that the United States Senate gets their act together under the leadership of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and passes a bill that is truly for the middle-class worker in America.
This does absolutely highlight exactly how much Trump has failed all of us in our entire community and, quite honestly, the world. It's not just about the virus spreading. It's about the economic impact. It's about how this is going to ripple out for many months, if not years, going forward. He has been the devil, as far as we can determine, for these actions, for these different organizations. The economy will be failing for the next several months, at least at the easiest, under his rule. This is just one more example to see that.
America, we let you know, in conjunction with this, too many of the fears that you have, questions you have, myths that you're hearing about and reading about on the internet. Tomorrow night at Q News, tonight at 7 o'clock, we're going to do a special called Q&A on the coronavirus. This is going to be tomorrow, Thursday, March 19th at 7 p.m. And we're going to do this every Thursday while the coronavirus emergency is in effect. We are going to have the mayor of the gayest place on planet Earth, Dean Trentellis, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale. We're going to have medical specialists and HIV specialists, and they're going to be here to answer your questions. We have many questions, and they're going to be available where you can ask your questions specifically of things that you're concerned about in any way. Payroll, food, rent. What should you do about your rent or your car payment that is going to be due in approximately 12 days? And what should you do about it if you're sequestered at home? And everything that is related to it, we're going to be answering as many of your questions as possible. In conjunction with that, we do a call out to our LGBT media partners around the United States and the world. We invite you to join us on Q&A on coronavirus and help join with us to spread the message. You participate in telling the story, you ask questions, and if you're a print media in LGBT, if you're World of Wonder who does RuPaul's Drag Race, if you're a moderator of group pages that are principally designed for the LGBT community, or you're a gay influencer in this community, we invite you to join us. This is not about Q News tonight. Tomorrow night, we begin our weekly challenge of keeping the LGBT American community and the world community informed about coronavirus and our specific issues and needs. So if you have a favorite LGBT media, reach out to them and tell them about this special and invite them to participate with us. We will share the platform in whatever way they ask us to share.
And if you are one of those LGBT media that is looking forward to having more partnerships because you want to make a bigger impact, we are here to help you. So please make sure to find us. We are doing our best. This is information that needs to be spread, and we have to get it out there. So thank you for your support.
Before we move out of this Breaking Q USA news, we want to report on something in terms of a timeline. Yesterday, we reported here at Q News Tonight that for the first time yesterday, March 17th, we felt like the president had a different tone on coronavirus. However, we've prepared a summary of what's happened in the last 79 days on coronavirus. And we want to connect the dots of how we've gotten to this moment. Watch this.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. We think we have it very well under control. We pretty much shut it down. Coming in from China. You know, in April, supposedly it dies with the hotter weather. When it gets warm, historically, that has been able to kill the virus. People are getting better. They're all getting better. And the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear, and you'll be fine. They're going to have vaccines, I think, relatively soon. Not only the vaccines, but the therapies. Therapies is sort of another word for cure. We're talking about very small numbers in the United States. Our numbers are lower than just about anybody. It's really working out. And a lot of good things are going to happen. And we are responding with great speed and professionalism. It's going to go away. Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all. We're going to all be great. We're going to be so good. This came up, we came up so suddenly. This is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. All you had to do is look at other countries. The coronavirus, you know that, right? Coronavirus. And this is their new hoax. We're 15 people in this massive country. And because of the fact that we went early. We could have had a lot more than that. We're doing great. Our country is doing so great.
Well, we can see here, Q News Tonight started, Aaron Dar, Napoleon Plays, and myself started to report on coronavirus on January 9th. On January 22nd, the president basically minimized coronavirus and its importance in America. And you can see here in the summary that we've prepared exactly what has happened through yesterday. Y'all's thoughts?
Don't do drugs, kids. I mean, this is what we're going to see come this November. I've said it for weeks. I'm going to say it again. Coronavirus, the mishandling of it by the federal government under the Trump administration, led or not led by President Trump, is going to ensure that he is a one-term president. We're going to see much more of this come this November.
You know, I really hope that that's true, and I've said it from the beginning, and I feel personal vindication that I need to see Trump taken down based on what he's done to our country. That ad is beautiful. It shows exactly what position he has put every one of our lives in, what jeopardy he has put every one of our lives and the ones we care about in. However, I am concerned because even though all of those ads are happening, we're still getting ads. We're still getting people, my own aunt, who's never voted Republican before, who are watching Trump respond now in these last 2 days saying, oh, he's finally acting like a president. Maybe he'll get this handled. No. He lost his opportunity to on January 17th when he said to the World Health Organization that we are not going to get those tests that might save millions of lives or at least be able to help the rest of the country.
I think the important thing is New York Governor Cuomo's response. New York Governor Cuomo said yesterday that he had great conversation with President Trump and that he is going to be a great ally to the state of New York. He is doing the correct thing as governor, saying, I can't handle this on my own in New York, so I must have the federal government. But we will not forget how we got placed in this situation. And that's what that summary of the last 2.5 months suggests. So good evening again, America. It's 7 p.m. Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. It is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories are next on Q News Tonight.
Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show. Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight.
Again, welcome, America, to Q News Tonight. We are live and unscripted, so anything can happen. Tonight, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBT community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and these are my co-anchors, Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays. Let's cue up the news. We queue up the world, and we remind you Q means queer. We queue up the world tonight, reporting on coronavirus's surge in Asia, dims hopes of containment elsewhere in the world. We've prepared this. Watch this.
Indonesia has reported 14 deaths and 55 new COVID-19 infections. It's the biggest daily increase that we've seen. There are now 227 cases, barely 3 weeks after the country reported its very first case. As the numbers rise, the World Health Organization is warning the whole region needs to take aggressive action. It says that some countries in Southeast Asia are heading towards community transmission, and more clusters are being confirmed. Several countries in the region have already introduced drastic measures to curb the spread. Malaysia has effectively entered a 2-week lockdown.
Now, these are reports coming from the Financial Times that the virus has crept back up. Now, South Korea, Taiwan, China, they have had urgent new containment ideas that have been trying to hold on to the virus and keep it from spreading. But unfortunately, it has shown to be a temporary success and not a permanent one, as we're seeing here. Now, on the flip side, we're seeing what Trump is saying about this virus going around the entire world. He's blaming China directly. He's calling it the China flu or the Kung flu in a derogatory way. So what do you guys think about the fact that this is now becoming a, he said, aggressive attack against China as a whole and not a global pandemic?
Does this surprise you? I mean, when people show you who they are, believe them. Donald Trump is a bigot and a racist.
We headlined the show in terms of how the president has spoken about coronavirus over the last 2.5 months, and it is an absolute exclamation point of how he does it, including yesterday saying, I called it a pandemic long before anyone else called it a pandemic. It is a flat-out lie. He flat-out lies. He is a flat-out liar. One of the other things that I think is very important is not only coronavirus surging in Asia. I'm concerned about the reporting today coming from Italy. Italy has been in virtual lockdown for the last 10 days, and they had the largest number of new corona cases today and the largest number of corona deaths today. 10 days later from lockdown, more than 450 deaths today. Average age of the deaths reported today were 81 years old. This is a very significant event that we all must be paying close attention to.
That is very true, and we're going to be paying attention to it here. We're going to bring you everything we possibly can on Italy, on South Korea, and everywhere else, because we know that you're valuing our voice in the LGBTQ community, and we want to ask you, are LGBT voices important in the community? Does the voice of a gay community have importance and perspective to you? If you want the news of the world to have a gay community perspective, and like us, think the answer is a resounding yes, then like and subscribe to Q News Tonight on YouTube and Facebook. Do our gay cultural stories impact you, your friends, and family? Start a watch party. Get your circle involved in our conversation as it supports the gay community in full.
We continue by queuing up Vote 2020 by reporting about the mini Tuesday yesterday, a Super Tuesday yesterday. Biden wins 3 key states as Sanders reassesses his entire campaign as the Democratic nominee. Before we have that conversation, we've prepared a package. Watch this.
Here, but just the vote patterns here. Again, we talked about this blue-collar white voters swinging dramatically away from Bernie Sanders compared to 4 years ago. It's just not the same recipe that was there for him in places like Illinois, places like Michigan. And again, you're going to get not just a Biden win here. I think it looks like a pretty big Biden win out of Illinois tonight.
So as our viewers just saw, former Vice President Biden won 3 out of 3 states last night as Bernie Sanders is now reassessing his presidential campaign. Biden overwhelmingly won Florida, Arizona, and Illinois, all of them by double digits, solidifying a 300-plus delegate lead over Senator Sanders. As I just said, Senator Sanders is now, of course, reassessing his political campaign for president. I issued a statement today saying as he reassesses this, he is much so more focused on his work in the United States Senate and the Senate's response to the coronavirus on behalf of the United States government. I do know that he did suspend his digital ads on Facebook and online for his presidential campaign. And I do think that Senator Sanders and many of his supporters are starting to see the writing on the wall.
Aaron, help us understand what that means. When he suspended his digital ads for president, what are the implications of that? What does it mean?
Well, I think that what we're starting to see is the reassessment of his presidential campaign and suspending ads, if you will. What you're essentially doing is you're either going to allocate funds somewhere else that you think will be more productive use of those funds should you stay in the race, or you're starting to lay the foundation to slowly suspend your presidential campaign.
All right, well, we continue in queuing up Vote 2020 by having a bit of a different story in the political process. An anti-choice Democrat loses in primary to a progressive woman. Before Napoleon tells us what's going on there, we've prepared this. Watch.
There was another, though, significant result last night that we should talk about, Sagar, which is that Dan Lipinski, a corporatist, very conservative, one of the most conservative Democrats really left in the House, incumbent in the Chicago area, was defeated by progressive insurgent challenger Marie Newman. Now, look, I mean, turnout was down, and I'm sure she probably benefited from, I think they had a superior organization, more enthusiasm, energy out to get people out. But she was victorious last night, and backed by the Justice Democrats, that is a real win for progressives.
Now, the big story here is quotation. A functioning democracy should not have this. And what do I mean when I say this? Voters being turned away from their polls, fears of how far away you are from others who might be infected. Now, this was an entire problem. The corona safety was put in question, and the disastrous result of this election, or of this specific precinct, was put into question. Now, Marie Newman has strong support from many, many people, from Planned Parenthood, from AOC, from other organizations and individuals who have backed her for a long time. She lost by just 2 points back in 2018, back when she was trying to beat the incumbent. But the real story here is that she has beat the most conservative person, and she is a very, very progressive person. So is this the tide changing as we're moving forward, or is this us seeing any excuse, such as corona, is going to show us that maybe people won't show up?
Well, this isn't a new happening. I mean, we saw even in the 2018 midterm election where there were individuals who happened to be, of course, but white heterosexual men over the age of 45, who a lot of them were anti-choice, and they're in southern conservative districts. So the conservative Democrats, they were primaried by somewhat moderate, somewhat progressive women who were pro-choice. And, you know, the Democratic Party in the 21st century, in 2020, promotes the ideology that women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights, and that includes reproductive health care.
You know, as it relates to the story, an interesting thing happened at the White House CDC briefing today. A reporter specifically asked confidence in President Trump in terms of his approval rating and the rejection of his credibility, that Americans did not believe him. His answer was very specific, and it was a fearful answer. I don't know where you're getting your facts. I'm summarizing the president's words. 95% of all Republicans support everything that I'm doing. His answer was his base. That's what his answer was today. And I thought that was a very interesting argument, because it was a surrender argument that the majority of Americans do not support the president. 95%, which is not even true, of Republicans support him. And I'm watching the fear growing in him of eventually what we're seeing, the speeding train that you can hear on the end of the horizon. And this story is a similar kind of story.
And as that election, other elections across the country continue to play out, Q News Tonight is going to be here every single step of the way to cover that process, because Q News Tonight is part of the Happening Out television network. We are the Daily News. But you can also watch the best of Entertainment Live every Monday night at 8 p.m. on It's Happening Out. It's a talk show like television's The View, but with a whole lot of gay people. And that is actually our sister show, which is going to be showing tonight. At 7 p.m. right after Q News Tonight, which is It's Happening Out.
That's right. We're excited to do it tonight at 8. We continue to queue up the USA by reporting a cop who shot and killed Georgia Tech's Pride leader will not face charges. Before Aaron tells us about that story, we've prepared this. Watch.
Deadly shooting of a Georgia Tech student on campus. Scout Schultz was a 21-year-old senior majoring in engineering. Schultz identified as neither male nor female and was president of the school's Pride Alliance. Georgia Tech police responded to a call Saturday night that led to Schultz's death. The encounter was captured on cell phone video.
So a Georgia Tech police officer who shot and killed a 21-year-old leader of the school's Pride Alliance during a confrontation will not face criminal charges, Fulton's top prosecutor has stated. Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard will not pursue additional charges against Tyler Beck, who was 23 at the time of the September 2017 incident, which our viewers just saw in the video with Scout Schultz. Just reading some of the backstory on this, facts matter. It's a very unfortunate incident, and I think there's a very fine line between cops who are trained shoot to kill and kill to shoot. Do I think that this person could have been shot somewhere else on their body where they perhaps would have not had a fatality, where they would have died? I can't speak to the operation of one's mind, but there were multiple police officers at the scene. This one police officer found the need to shoot this individual, but this person, Scout, that we're talking about, I believe from what I've read and even the video, very mentally disturbed, having a hard time. Some people are calling it suicide by cop. Had a gun and then some kind of device in their pocket, which they believed could have been a gun along with a knife. So if you're lunging at a police officer, you have to put yourself in the shoes of law enforcement officials. And unfortunately, I'm going to go with the prosecutor and the police department that they did the right thing.
I'm sure that they did what they did in defense, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was what was best for everybody. I know that this is troubling times, and to even be able to report on this story does help us to bring ourselves to a sense of normalcy, and I think that's why it's important, because life does function moving forward, and we still have to abide by not just laws, but civilian laws as well.
Tonight, we are broadcasting from our studio set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center here in Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We joke we're coming from the gayest place on planet Earth. Tonight, It's Happening Out at 8 o'clock, we're going to do an appeal for you to help the World AIDS Museum. Tomorrow, in our special Q&A at Q News Tonight, we're going to do the same appeal. This museum, like almost every other organization in America, is currently closed. The museum is not operating, closed based on corona protocols and procedures. But this is a 501c3, and we are going to draw attention to the effect that coronavirus is having on our charitable organizations in the LGBT community, and use the World AIDS Museum as an illustrative example. So we're going to ask you to help, because there is great risk of this museum's continued participation in community and representing what it needs to do in the LGBT community. We are literally going to begin telling the story of asking the question, did Corona kill AIDS? And we hope that you will support the World AIDS Museum, because it is vitally important. And we'll talk more about that tonight at 8 o'clock on It's Happening Out. We want to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set possible. You will notice, or you might not notice, our table is much, much larger tonight. And it was because finally, I make the joke that I've asked the producers to push these two guys away from me farther and farther, and finally coronavirus gave them the justification to do it.
At least the feeling is mutual.
No, I think Al's so gay that he just wanted to practice his stop in the name of love.
All right.
Oh, that's what
Right.
I went full on stop telling me what to do.
All right, so we're going to continue by queuing up the USA, and we go to Nevada. This was a big story. We know what's gone on in Disney and the theme parks, but it's happened to Nevada now. We report tonight that Nevada has ordered all casinos closed for 30 days due to coronavirus. We've prepared a package on it. Watch this.
Yeah, the governor last weekend had said, don't worry, the casinos can do what they want. We're going to support whether they want to stay open or whether they want to close. Last night, he changed his mind and ordered all of these non-essential businesses to shut down. Let me give you a sense of what that means for Nevada's workers. You've got 100,000 people alone working on the Las Vegas Strip. The Nevada Resort Association says 450,000 people work in travel and tourism across Nevada. It is the lifeblood of the state, by far the biggest industry, worth $68 billion. And now these are people who are sitting at home.
The governor of Nevada has shut down over 440 licensed casinos. That means over 450,000 travel and tourism dollars in Nevada and people. That's a $68 billion investment in the city and state of Nevada, or city of Las Vegas and state of Nevada, are going to be lost in this process. And this brings up to the question, is the individual moment more important as to shutting down your businesses? It's the first time that we've ever seen the entire strip of Nevada shut down. Or is it more important to help mitigate the problems of this public health disease? And what is going to be happening? We've seen casinos deal with this in a multitude of ways. 2 weeks leave for some of their employees. Others are saying, we'll call you when we're going to get back. Some are saying that they're going to absorb the costs. And obviously there are a lot of people that are going to be put out of work. And this is just one example across the country of a huge scenario of how much of an economic impact this is going to have.
There is virtually no industry in America, or in the world for that matter, that is not dramatically affected by coronavirus. Casinos should be no different, and they're not exempt. So they'll come back, and they will come roaring back when corona is solved. So our obligation is to solve corona first, and that's what we learned today in Nevada. We finished tonight with what we call the big finish. There are many stories today we only want to just mention. Let's see if Aaron and Napoleon and I can entertain each other. We're committed in the coming weeks to do the big finish and talk about, in a little soundbite, interesting little stories that are coming up, but only giving you a little taste of our observations and principally trying to make joke. Now, Aaron and Napoleon are having great difficulty with this, and of course, I'm like Donald Trump. I'm a 10 out of 10.
You're like Donald Trump. I hear that.
So we are committed to continuing to do the big finish because we think it's important that we do a lightning round on LGBT news of the day and news of an LGBT perspective. We'll try not to talk very much, and we'll try to make this entertaining for you. We all understand?
Yep, let's do it.
All right.
Aye, aye.
All right, here we go. Q News tonight, the big finish. Big finish story number 1. Amber Heard reportedly smashed Johnny Depp's head into a door.
Who hits Edward Scissorhands?
I don't know. That is definitely not where I would be pushing his head.
Whoa, she went there, boys and girls.
I already had Mises.
That observation is so good, I shall not speak.
Oh, I won.
The big finish. In American football, Tom Brady from the New England Patriots, 20 years, 7 Super Bowl wins, has signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Straits and Al have gone crazy.
Woo! A sports story! Yay!
Meanwhile, in the real gay spectrum, everyone is excited because Tom Brady is coming to Miami. Woo! Or Tampa, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say it's Tampa. That's
Florida! Whatever Florida is.
He wasn't such a big Trump supporter. I'd be more excited.
And what's really funny about this is 20 years in New England and Boston, he does what every other damn retiree does.
Gee.
They come to Florida. All right, the big finish. Andrew Gillum, our Democratic candidate for governor who lost to DeSantis, was found in a hotel room on South Beach with an overdosed gay escort.
And that's really unfortunate. He had to step down in the midterm election just a couple of years ago, and he was fighting for it. He was fighting for Florida and for people's rights, and it's a shame to see anything of his life exposed in this way because he really seemed to want the best for our community.
I make no mistake that I don't like Andrew Gillum personally. I've never cared for him. But during this time, he has sought rehabilitation for his addiction and alcohol dependency. So for that, I'm not going to kick somebody while they're down. And I do hope that he and his family get through this.
Just like in Steel Magnolias. Oh, of course you can. Come over here and sit next to me. Andrew Gillum is just another in long list of politicians who would much rather go to rehab than admit that they're gay. The big finish. Idaho GOP ignores coronavirus in favor of requiring medical tests for transgendered student athletes.
You know, this doesn't surprise me. Again, when people show you who they are, believe them. The Republican Party in Idaho and across the country would rather focus on taking steps back for the LGBTQ community rather than combating that of coronavirus.
This story is completely illogical. The GOP would rather make sure that some people can't compete in a game versus save lives. There's no comprehension to this. The Republican Party would rather kill you than have an equivalent field. That's all that can be said.
Why is it every time that we mention Idaho at Q News tonight, it's either about potatoes or ignorance? The big finish. Surgeon General says 15 days of social distancing is likely not going to be enough to halt coronavirus.
I guess the coronavirus meant Al Ferguson.
15 days of social distancing likely is not going to be enough, and I completely agree. This is going to be a long road ahead, but it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
I don't think social distancing is really a big deal. After all, Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays, my co-anchors, have been social distancing for years. The big finish. California man starts street corner toilet paper exchange.
Well, one, I thought Donald Trump changed his residency to Florida, not California. But good for Donald Trump. He's going into business. He's preparing to be a one-term president.
This is a fantastic thing that this California man is doing, but my first thoughts were about why would you ever want to exchange toilet paper, and that sounds absolutely disgusting. But it is honestly a good thing.
America, in full disclosure, this California man is the chief executive officer of Goldman Sachs, and his money is safer in toilet paper than the New York Stock Exchange. We are talking about happy 41st birthday to Adam Levine.
You just love birthdays. I also think it's incredible because in practicing his Hooked on Phonics with letters, Al Ferguson also is learning his numbers as well. So 41, congrats, you can count that high.
And Adam, I did not know that you were 41, but I want you to know, as my gay coming out story, I know I don't know you, but I want you so bad. Everyone has a secret. Oh, can they keep it?
Where's the Lysol? Where's the Lysol?
The summary of that joke is absolutely true, because at the end of the day, I am going to get through looking at Adam Levine shirtless every single day until coronavirus is solved. We cue up the big finish by saying on this day in 1940, Mussolini and Italy joined Hitler for World War II.
Who knew? All you needed was Donald Trump to be president. You didn't have to have World War III. You could have his inaction just cause a global pandemic, not just in the United States, but around the world. And due to his inaction, we could possibly see the complete and total collapse of our republic.
It's true. Only 80 years ago, we saw people formulate an alliance to destroy all of America. And in just 1 year from now, there won't be an America left to form that alliance.
I think it's very interesting that Mussolini, one of the most hated people in history, dragged through the streets in Rome after he was killed by the Italians, still probably made a better decision than our fascist-in-chief that's running America
I'm just
today.
so surprised that you can even read the word Mussolini.
All right, that is today's news for the LGBT community. And America, I told you, I was going to get a 10 out of 10. Aaron, Napoleon, not so much. This is the world's first daily gay evening news show. And remember, if it's important to the LGBT community, it's important to Q News Tonight. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines, and this is Q News Tonight. We remind you, tomorrow night we're going to do Q&A on coronavirus. Tomorrow night, Thursday, March 19th at 7 p.m., we're going to have the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, the gayest city on planet Earth, doctors, HIV specialists, and we're going to answer your questions about corona and coronavirus and your fears and your misunderstandings and the myths, etc. We're going to be here completely for you tomorrow night with experts to help do that. And we remind our LGBT media partners, our group moderators, our influencers, join us. We want to make this a collective, joint opportunity for everyone in the LGBT community. Thank you, and we're going to see you tomorrow night at 7.